I want to answer the alignment question, but I'm going to answer it in a way that I've not heard anyone discuss this question before. There's a lot of work by big companies and smart people to solve the alignment problem as it has been generally discussed. How do we use this technology? How do we deploy this technology while keeping it aligned with our collective safety and our collective goals? This is a very necessary part of the challenge if we are going to survive this technology and stand a chance of thriving as a result of this technology. But there is a massive part, I would say half of this challenge, the alignment challenge, that's not being discussed by anyone, or at least not what I've seen. And I am following, I believe, everyone worth following in this space. That's what I hope this conversation will be. I want to initiate, I want to document, and I want to have a dialogue around what I believe to be the more important side of this challenge. If we are going to go beyond collectively surviving this technological transformation, and we're going to go somewhere that actually helps us as individuals thrive and find more meaning and become more fulfilled and embody our values, then we need to go far beyond instilling safety for the collective in these foundation models. Pretty soon, and maybe even already, AI is going to touch every single decision you make. It's going to influence every single action you take. And the question we need to be asking is, what are the forces shaping this force, this highly influential force, massively impactful force that's only growing exponentially in its impact on our lives? And another part of this problem is that even if I could tomorrow give you the perfect super assistant that could help you achieve anything, would you be ready for that? Would you even know what to choose? Do you even know what your values are? Do you know what's good for you? Do you know what you're striving for? And for a long time, I've wrestled with this challenge. I think a lot of us don't get what we want because we're actually not very clear and certain about what it is we want. And from the early days of interacting with ChatGPT prompt by prompt, one thing became very clear, that to get these systems to help me to do whatever it is I wanted to do, I had to become extremely well aware of what it is I'm trying to get the system to do, and I had to architect my inputs into the system in a very sophisticated way, a very intentional way, to stand any chance of getting that system to do what I wanted to do. And these systems appear like they can do anything. But out of that full spectrum of possibility, the space of potential, getting it to do what we want is not as simple as asking for it. We've seen this happen many, many times before in different industries. There is a default path where a lot of us consume the scalable default technologies or information, and we land up finding ourselves in some sort of cookie cutter situation. A lot of people are using AI for productivity. They're just doing what they're currently doing, whatever it is they've been doing up until now. They're now using this technology to help them do more of that, or to do what they're doing with more impact. But I don't know if anyone is now truly questioning their purposes, their aims. And if you suddenly were given an entire organization of employees and you could achieve anything you wanted, would you still be trying to do the same thing, just with a whole lot more work power focused on that task? I can tell you that if I suddenly was given the resources, the capital, the manpower to do anything, I would not be doing the same thing I was doing before I had that. There's a whole new realm of possibility that opens up because all of the conditions of our situation change. And this is where we have a massive opportunity to step out of this default path of working with what we have, of settling for what we believe is possible, and really expanding our minds into this new situation, into this new realm of what feels like infinite possibility, and starting to choose with this new flexibility, with the new options on the table, what is it out of all the new possibilities? Am I even aware of all the new possibilities available to me? And once I become aware, or start to become aware of what some of these new possibilities are, am I going to shift from being a puppet of circumstances which seemed difficult to change and which were controlling me, or am I going to shift into an architect that's going to leverage the new possibilities, the new power that each of us is going to have access to, and some of us already do? Are we going to leverage that to architect a situation which is uniquely designed and defined to meet our individual highest good? It's an extremely common theme in the whole domain of moving from a space of dissatisfaction into an experience of fulfillment. Are we puppets of our situations, subject to external control, having our decisions defined for us, reacting from moment to moment to what's put in front of us? And the change we have to go through to fundamentally change our situation is we have to become a pilot. We have to exercise our internal authority. We have to figure out who we are, what we want, and we need to exact that onto the world, onto our tools. And as a result of this, we get to chart our own course. And as much potential as AI promises, I promise you that we will find ourselves at a fork in the roads, as we have with every technology that's come up until now, where we can either be used by this technology or we can use this technology. Now, the reason why this has become an incredibly pressing conversation to have right now is because we are in this AI moment. All of a sudden, we are in a situation where hundreds of people, thousands of people who are on the bleeding edge of AI and are already tasting of what the future already holds, are having a taste of what it's possible to tap into. At the same time, there's many people who are just still questioning whether AI is even useful or not, criticizing the fact that it doesn't do what they expect it to do. I'm not even quite sure what they expect it to do. But as I've said from the beginning, using AI takes a hell of a lot of intention. It's not easy. It can do anything you want it to do, but you need to figure out, just like every other hard system before, I'm sure software engineers felt this as the field was growing in its early days. There is this whole new domain of infinite possibility, but just because there's so much potential doesn't mean it's easy. In fact, it's really, really hard to get software to do some of the stuff that we get it to do. But the potential is still there within the software to achieve infinitely more goals than we could before. And we are now at this point that even if the models, the foundation models, never got any better from where they are today, because of how we are coming to develop different architectures with this base new foundational unit of intelligence, and we are beginning, or we will continue to bring these together in more powerful architectures. And for those of us who are on the bleeding edge, who are where the future is unevenly distributed to us already because of our interests and skills and what our excitement about this technology, we can already see that future is here already for some of us, and it's racing forward to become generally available to everyone as it becomes easier and easier to deploy and to use. So this is a certainty. We are in this moment now where what is on the horizon is becoming extremely clear to some of us. And what is on the horizon is this massive potential. To have super powerful personal assistants that can help us do anything, essentially. I mean, we're only scratching the surface now. This is a brand new wave of technology, and already the possibilities are mind-bending. And so some of us are already being forced to answer the question, what do I do with this? As we build out our systems of more and more complexity, we have to answer these questions. Well, what if I try to do this new thing? What is it? Is it possible to achieve this? What if I link all of these systems together? What happens then? And continuously, there is this emergent and compounding effect where these systems are proving to be infinitely useful. And we're just getting started. So this is the moment that we need to start deciding, what do we choose to do with this? As we come to taste more and more power of this, as we come to understand that there are many more potentials available for us, we are forced to decide, well, what is that next step? What do I choose to do? Who do I choose to become? And if we're not operating from a place of clear direction, philosophies, principles, goals, then what are we doing? And if we operate aimlessly, but with this mind-bending amount of power, not only is that the biggest waste for any of us in this life, but I think it's actually pretty dangerous for the individual, because we will land up reacting, we will land up having our strings pulled, and we will end up being used by these technologies and their providers, because someone needs to benefit. And if you are not extracting the highest benefit from this technology because you know what's good for you and where you want to go and how you want to be, then you won't achieve those things. You won't become better. You won't feel more fulfilled. You won't achieve your goals. And so each of us has to choose at the fork in the road. Do we use this for our personal awakening? Do we use this for our maximum fulfillment? Or do we slip into distraction? Do we go into digital comas? Do we consume the most mind-bending entertainment? Do we get hooked on all new kinds of social media? Who knows where our attention gets and what it gets latched onto. But if we don't choose and deliberately execute a plan that is aligned for our best interest, we will lose out, even in this spectacular moment of this technological transformation. Now, the question that I've been asking for more than a decade now is, what is it that I really want? And man, it's a hard question to answer. I have become pretty confident that achievement alone is not enough. And we have more than enough examples of the rich and the famous, the highly productive, setting out, achieving their goals, and not really feeling changed for that for any sustainable period. In fact, I'm sure we've all experienced it in our own lives. We can achieve any goal that we want. We feel changed, we feel uplifted temporarily, but very quickly we slip back into our baseline, and that achievement has not really given us anything. I hope we've learned along the way, but what is knowledge if we are not changed, if our baseline of operation doesn't change? And at the root of this is the philosophical perspective that we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. So the experience that we are continuously having has less to do with whether we've reached all our goals, or whether we have all the possessions we want, or we have all the relationships we want. Those things can help. But it's our state of being that ultimately determines whether we see the cup as half full or half empty. And if we see the cup as half full, then all of a sudden our situation changes. What we see changes. And not only does our immediate situation look a lot better to us, but we start to see opportunities instead of challenges. And so we are much better equipped to improve our situation when we view our current situation positively. The program, the pattern to think that we need to get somewhere before we can feel different is a pattern we will take with us everywhere we go. So we can radically change our situation. In most cases, for most people, especially you watching this video, we can radically change our situation. But we will take those patterns with us. If those are our patterns, we will get to that new situation and we will believe that all we need to do is change our situation and then we'll feel different. And so achievement is not enough on its own. We can achieve anything we want, but if we don't change who we are, how we think, and how we feel, achievement means nothing. It changes nothing. Fundamentally, we will have the same experience of life, no matter what we've changed in our situation, in our external situation. And so at the core of what I hold as one of my values, that I am going to be embodying in these systems that help me, is not purely the aims or the means to achieve external goals. I choose to evolve. My personal development through the process of whatever I do is central to the operating system that I'm going to share. And this is the foundation for this conversation. What is the operating system that we choose as individuals? Because if we don't have a clue what we want for ourselves, then how on earth are we supposed to get an AI assistant, super assistant, to help us achieve whatever it is we want? We need to have personal clarity before we can expect to have alignment of our super systems with our personal highest good. Now, how do we change for the better? How do we pursue our goals in a way that truly does fulfill us? What are the key ingredients? Are there key ingredients? And I believe there are. In fact, I believe there is one universal key ingredient that seems to be in every teaching, every philosophy that exists to help us become better versions of ourselves, to help us change for the better, to help us be more content, more grateful, should I say. And so this would be one of the core operating principles within the operating system that I choose for me, that I wish to instill in the super systems that assist me. Every path to fulfillment seems to rely on choosing the harder thing now. The easy route, the immediate gratification, is how we transform any pursuit into a destructive pursuit. And when we learn how to delay our gratification and to go through the initial sacrifice, then we transform that same pursuit, that same journey into something that fundamentally changes us. Because the immediate gratification is actually a primal reaction to the moment. Our brain doesn't really process the benefits that will come later. We can only compulsively choose the benefits which are right in front of us. But a lot of those benefits, when we live our life chasing immediate benefits, as opposed to doing what is constructive or what is for our highest good. And when those gluttony basically rules us, then we change into something, a version of ourselves which is ultimately less fulfilled, which depends on stimulation, which is controlled by the circumstance. And in order to do the hard thing, we have to release the grip. We have to release ourselves from the grip of the situation by keeping in mind the future situation, which in itself contains a process of personal transformation. We literally have to learn how to release ourselves from the grips of reactivity, from the grips of desire, and we have to channel our intentions and our desires to something higher, something more beneficial. Now, there's a name for this concept, and it's called time preference. Time preference is an economics term for explaining things like interest and compounding and the kinds of decisions that consumers make. And a high time preference, when we place a high preference on the time, that's describing behaviors which serve immediate gratification, which is almost always a short-lived satisfaction and then comes with longer-term consequences, because our choices, our decisions, our actions are literally, they have a short time horizon and they are disregarding the longer time horizon. And then low time preference is an experience, a perceived experience of sacrifice now to choose or make a decision that's more sustainably benefiting. It doesn't just give us a benefit now, which then is unsustainable. And because of this fact that it is sustainable, we can keep making that decision, which is initially less satisfying than the immediately gratifying one, which give us a much bigger initial satisfaction. So if we choose the lowest satisfaction initially, but then we continue to build that satisfaction because it's by definition sustainable, then we start to move into the realm of, accumulating satisfaction or benefits, and in many cases, compounding benefits and satisfactions. And this is how people ultimately reach or achieve things which are much greater than their short-term actions ever could. There's only so much we can do as individuals, and the consequences, or should I say the implications of those actions, are very limited when we think in terms of the short term. But if we focus on something and we keep chipping away at it for a long enough time, we start to get the compounded returns. And I'm not sure if it's James Clear. His very popular example of this is improving 1% every day feels like nothing, but by the end of a year, you're like 27 times improved. Another very difficult thing for our brain to understand. But making that immediate sacrifice, choosing to benefit even just slightly now instead of slipping into our default reactive, immediately gratifying thing, something that we would choose other than that habit right now that we're trying to build with willpower. If we choose to exercise a little bit of willpower and we just keep building on that, we access benefits down the line which are profoundly greater than we could achieve if we tried to achieve them on the short term. And this, I see examples of this everywhere, whether it's in our health and we choose to have the extremely stimulating, hyper-palatable junk foods and sweets, or we adopt the longer term healthy eating. We allow our palates to resensitize over time. We develop a different kind of appreciation for the food, and we're much more grateful for how it nourishes us. Our palate adjusts to natural foods, and all of a sudden we have this extremely fulfilling relationship with food. Never mind all of the compounding health benefits that come with that. And then we start to love our food because it makes us healthy. And whereas most of the population is still pursuing that immediate gratification. They really believe that short-term satisfaction, that short-term stimulation is better than the compounded appreciation of food and the compounded health that they would experience years down the line, which can never be achieved in a day. Even though eating some fast food or some junk food, you can immediately get that benefit now, that stimulation, that satisfaction. And so this is the challenge we're constantly going through. It's a difficult path. And to achieve this on all fronts in our lives at the same time is extremely difficult, or at least it has been up until now. So both of these paths are promising good feelings. One is just giving us the good feeling, the sense of satisfaction or enjoyment right now, while the other one is it's in the future, it's distant, and we have to build towards it. But not only can we access it, and is it possible, and is it sustainable, but it compounds. And this is one of the biggest opportunities I believe that we have when it comes to a super assistant AI. If I can get it to help me to achieve anything, then this is what I want it to help me achieve. Help me do the hard things so that I can fundamentally change for the better. Again, it's this process of if I react to the current situation and I give in to my desire for something that's right in front of me, that's literally a pattern that's programmed inside of me, that's motivating me, that's compelling me to make that decision, to indulge or to run away or whatever it is in the moment. But in order for me to move towards the low time preference benefits, in order for me to exercise, or in order for me to access those benefits, I have to exercise the willpower to not repeat that pattern. Then I have to keep not repeating that pattern until I access those benefits. And so not only do I access those benefits, but inside of me, I have released the power of that pattern over me. And most of our suffering comes from these patterns that control us, instead of us being free of them, experiencing the true freedom of making our own choices, and then the compounded benefits of those beneficial choices. And to achieve this act of willpower, or this discipline, or this sacrifice, or this breaking free of our patterns, to not only achieve things which are much greater, but to become something, the version of ourselves which is much more fulfilled and content and free ultimately, and grateful and optimistic and inspired, to experience those feelings and to experience them across the full spectrum of our lives in all the domains. This is an opportunity for our AI to really, really help us. And so this frame of high time preference versus low time preference has been an extremely useful filter for me to view my decisions and my behaviors through. Is what I'm choosing to do right now giving me some sort of immediate gratification with a long-term consequence, or is there something else I could do, something else I could choose that would give me more sustainable benefits in the long run? And the reason why I say, and I will always say the term perceived sacrifice, because we believe, and especially when you're sitting in the kitchen and you really want to eat some junk food, but then you're only going to pull out the salad, to make an extreme example, the stories that go through our mind is that now we're depriving ourselves, that we are not living. But that's all nonsense, because we think we're not allowing ourselves to enjoy life. But in fact, we're destroying our life if we keep giving into those patterns, if we keep repeating those patterns. And the sacrifice appears to be a sacrifice if you look at it along the timeline. The reality is we're actually going to access many more benefits down the line. And so it's actually a much more fulfilling route to take. But we get stuck into these moments thinking well, life is here to be lived. This is what makes me happy. Food is life, etc., etc. So it's merely a perceived sacrifice. The difference between the two is also profound in what it's like to have a moment, a short moment that's satisfying, versus becoming something which is continuously satisfied. Those are incomparable experiences, but we deprive ourselves of that profound experience of feeling, of becoming satisfaction, because we continuously repeat the pattern of having a short-lived, satisfying experience. And ultimately, this is the fork in the road we are always facing. is that we will walk down the path towards destruction, towards repeating ourselves in circles, to being slave to our reactions and our patterns and our traumas and our programs, or we start to transform into something which is exponentially powerful. And so I believe, and this is what I choose to place at the heart of the system which supports me. How do you help me achieve radical personal transformation? And then I guarantee you, any external pursuit or achievement becomes much more accessible, much more enjoyable. And one other lens to look at this through, we are continuously convinced that we need to achieve things, that we need to have things, that we need to prove things. But we don't actually want any of these things that we tell ourselves that we do. What we want is the feeling that we believe it will give us. We don't want to have a perfect lover if we ourselves don't have the experience of being in perfect love. If you find yourself in a relationship with the perfect lover, but you yourself are still carrying the same patterns and programs and feelings that you had in every other relationship, of what value is this perfect lover? Of what value is this relationship? And at the same time, you can be with a completely imperfect lover, but you yourself change into something that is compassionate, grateful, giving, kind. Then your current relationship transforms, your current experience of the relationship transforms. So to achieve anything externally, but to disregard how we change through the process, is the biggest shot in our own foot that we all continuously repeat. This is the opportunity. Now, when we start to take advantage of this opportunity in so many different areas of our lives, because if we're having a conversation here around the fact that super intelligent personal AI assistance is accelerating towards us, then we have to start to believe that anything is possible, that we can achieve anything. And if we pull our mind back from, we can go to Mars, or I can build an organization, and we think, well, what would I achieve internally if I could achieve anything? And then we start to think of all the different layers, all the different dimensions, all the different domains in our life, all the different behaviors, the patterns. And we can start to make sustainably compounding choices in all of these areas. And we start to have many parallel compounds compounding next to one another, compounding each other. I don't think it's impossible to even imagine what kind of fulfilling experience we can cultivate for ourselves if we choose to prioritize what is truly for our highest good. If we look across the domains of our lives, and let's summarize as health, wealth, and connection, and we're pursuing each of those with low time preference behaviors which are compounding over time, each of these is going to compound and synergistically amplify each other. No aspect of our life can be separated from the other aspects of our lives. Everything is a complex system with the famous butterfly effect, where small actions somewhere through compounded results and through interlinking have far-reaching and far more profound effects than any of us acknowledge. And if we take, for example, how better nutrition gives us better energy and a clearer mind, better decisions, which gives us more presence, which helps us navigate stress better, which helps us think of better opportunities in challenging situations, which helps us operate in our relationships much more groundedly. And we can take any one of these things if we focus on presence first, and calmness and stress management, and then how that ripples out into all the other aspects of our lives. And if we can then start to improve all of these different aspects, the possibilities are crazy. And this is what excites me. And I can promise you, no foundation model lab can align their AI in a way that's going to serve you in this kind of way. It's their job to make sure that the models don't cause us to go extinct, that they can't be used for war, that they can't be used to violate human rights, that we protect property, that we do no harm. But ultimately, if you want it to benefit you, these are the questions we need to be asking. These are the ideas we need to be having. And so what's been happening up until now is these foundation models from the providers, from OpenAI, from Anthropic. They've building the fundamental building blocks, the foundational systems. And through iterations, which we've already seen, there is becoming huge improvements. And as individuals are learning to apply these systems and to fine-tune them to their needs, and as we fine-tune them to our needs, we're actually figuring out how much more is possible. And then we fine-tune it to those new possibilities and those new ideas. And then all these different domains, a very common thing that's happening with people who are using, let's say, Claude Code as their general purpose digital assistant. And they were using it to manage their personal admin and communications and email. And then they're using it to build this software. And then they're using it to do their writing. And then they start to do this all in the same repository. And it all starts to benefit and feed one another. All that shared context starts to synergistically build on top of one another. And we're starting to see the first evidence of, and for me, the eye-opening experience is Jeffrey Emanuel on X. He's a quantitative trader, I believe. I haven't looked at his CV much, but if you go look at his GitHub contributions in the last month, you can see his system has switched on. He's gone from 2 to 3 software commits per day. He's somewhere up in the 700s, reaching 1,000 per day. And because of the momentum that the flywheel that he's building is now gaining, the momentum that it's gaining, the exponential in such a highly technical, productive pursuit. Of course, software is going to be the first domain that this AGI arrives. But here we are seeing evidence, and I, in my own system, I'm replicating what he's doing. I'm learning from people on the bleeding edge, and I'm starting to see the compounded potentials in the system and the possibilities that are going to become possible. And this is what's leading me to think about how I use this to achieve the same internally. And over time, as these systems become way more complex, we're going to need to develop their resilience, and ultimately they need to become adapting for the future, because things are going to continuously change for a long period of time. But this is where things are going to go. And so you can either carry on prompting ChatGPT and trying to decide whether it's useful or not, or you can really start to think about how to use the system. Just operate on the assumption that this system can do anything. And the skill that you need to develop is to figure out how to make it do what you want. And then that depends on, do you know what you want? And then when you go back to, well, okay, what is the system helping me? And now as that system exponentially improves, and now it says, okay, well, I can give you anything you want. So you need to know what you want, but then you also, I think we are still a long way away from, I don't even know if it's possible. But for now, we still need to know, if we know what we want, and the system can give us anything we want, we still need to implement or figure out, decide how the system gives us what we want. And just another reminder that a lot of this is very difficult to appreciate. A lot of us who are on the bleeding edge can see the compounding happening, but even for us, it's really difficult to appreciate what's coming. Our brain simply has no means to think about compounding, and now when we're starting to talk about all these different forces compounding each other, and what I want to bring forward to the conversation, again, What do we imagine is possible if we start to compound the things that are required to make us more fulfilled human beings? And so this is what I'm going to share with you, a brief introduction. A lot of the follow-on episodes are going to go much deeper, and I'm going to share the specifics. This is a really high-level overview. Then we will go into each domain, and then we'll go into each of the practices, because I've been building this system for other reasons, just because for my personal alignment. That's just how I've been inclined. This has been the problem that has consumed my attention. But now, as sitting here with AI on the verge of being able to do anything for us, all of a sudden this seems like the most important question to answer. Well, if I can have anything I want, what is it that I want? So, the core pillars in this framework that I use to achieve low time preference in all of my actions, in all of the domains of my lives, the core pillars, and I'm speaking for myself as a man who values these things, but I've obsessed about this over a long time, and they have naturally, or it's felt like they've naturally aggregated into these different domains, these different areas. And it's ultimately health, wealth, and connection. These are the three domains of human action that we need to think about and that we can categorize our actions into. It's a nice mental framework. I'm not claiming that this is the truth and this is how life works. Not at all. This is a useful framework that helps me understand and organize and plan my actions, my behaviors, my decisions. Under health, we have eat, move, meditate. Eat being the inputs, move being the outputs, and meditate, I'm using the word in a way that you're probably not that familiar with, but meditation is both the practice, the stillness practice, as well as the state of consciousness of being more free of our patterns. And if you've gone into the masculine archetypes, there are equivalent feminine archetypes, but the warrior, the magician, the lover, and the king, the body, the mind, and the heart. Health is our body, and it's also where we cultivate the discipline of the warrior. Wealth, the domain of our mind, and where we cultivate or grow our magician. Also, mastery, mission, and money. Three pillars within this domain. Mastery being the process of developing value internally. Mission, how we share that value with the world. And money, the reciprocated value that we receive for successfully completing our mission. And then the money we can use for freedom or to further enhance our mission and or our mastery. And then the consequence of health and wealth, maybe I think the purpose of life, the reward of health and wealth, the meaning of life is our connection to others. This is the heart, and this is our lover archetype. And this comprise of play, community, and intimacy. Play is something that I think is composed of solo elements, group elements. Community is all the way from the people we play with to our network, to our friends, our broader family, and then intimacy is that final domain of basically our sexual intimate relationship with our chosen partner and our immediate family there is, and that's our most intimate connected domain. And all 9 of these pillars are essential vitamins. I think I've experienced with any one of these lagging behind a massive detriment to all other 8. And so I'm also extremely optimistic that if we start to make a little bit of progress in each of these domains, in all of these domains, just a little bit, 1% per day, think about the compound of compounds. These 9 core pillars, these 3 core domains, rest on one last domain with another 3 pillars, bringing us to 4 domains, 12 pillars. And this is the cycles, the systems, and the support. And this is basically the context and infrastructure within which our 9 core pillars operate. It's the context, it's how we implement the 9 core pillars, it's the support that we have to implement the pillars, support in the form of an AI, in a community. And so cycles is comprised of, time-based things. It's our circadian sleep rhythm. It's a menstrual, monthral rhythm. It's a lunar, solar, annual years, annual cycles, seasonal cycles, life stage cycles. All of these changing time cycles that we operate within, each with their own considerations. Systems comprises of all the systems that we use to execute the 9 core pillars, whether it's automations or whether it's alignment systems or task management systems or time management systems or any of these range of systems that we use to operate the 9 core pillars. And then support, as I mentioned, this is up until now basically being our family and friend community support. Ideally, we want to have support from like-minded individuals. That's also the purpose of me sharing this, because if any of you resonate and want to contribute or critique or whatever, that is the support I'm looking for. I'm looking for like-minded individuals to share this experience with it. We can support each other in building these systems, in embodying these values, and ultimately becoming this version of ourselves. I have captured it. This is a visual framework that I've had in mind over the past few years. What I see and think of as a visual representation for this, which just helps me. I just find it useful to organize the information in my head. I know where it sits. There's some interesting relationships between these. I really do believe mission is core to it. It's kind of like it is one of the big concepts in mission is ikigai, and it really is the kind of the actions that we wake up to perform every day. Like, really, what do we do with our lives? And for that to be most fulfilling, there's a lot of other stuff that needs to be in place. We really need to know what fulfills us, and we need to make it happen. We need to go through a lot of low time preference portals, doorways, to make that happen. We need to let go of a lot of patterns because the system hasn't programmed us to pursue our fulfillment in this way. And so we can see eat, move, meditate. There's a couple of labels around here. Eat, move, meditate is a personal pillar. Mastery, mission, and money is more of a public pillar. Play, community, and intimacy. It's our connection, our relational experience. We can also think of eat, mastery, and play. That column is more of a personal column or an inward column, because play I think of as fundamentally first a personal experience. Can we engage with an activity? Do we have activities that we engage with for the sake of that activity? It's not a means to an end. It's not productive. We access a state of flow because we are literally enjoying what we are doing. Sometimes work can become like that. Sometimes we confuse obsessive work with playful work, but playfulness is this transient, hypofrontal, less mind, more pure connection to our experience. And that's fundamentally first internal. But then, of course, there's many ways we can play alongside other people. So eat, mastery, play, more inward, and move, mission, community, more outward, and then meditate, money, and intimacy. I think of money as both economic principles, which I think we need to agree on if we're going to move into this better world. But it's more of a freedom mechanism, and then intimacy as well. It's all about connecting with someone else, and there's a hell of a lot of self-transformation that happens inside of intimacy when done with intention and with the goal of forward growth. And so meditate, money, and intimacy is more of an expansion layer, etc. There's quite a few layers, and you can see cycles, systems, and support along the bottom, supporting the 9 core pillars and domains. The 9 core pillars and 3 domains. Now, if low time preference is the guiding principle, the algorithm by which we understand how a decision or how a behavior is going to change us over time. Is it going to reinforce unwanted patterns, or is it going to liberate us from those patterns into a more natural, relaxed, fulfilled version of ourselves? Low time preference is that guiding principle. But there is another concept that's becoming clearer and clearer to me through this process, and the consequence of this system, as well as an integral part of it, the means and the end, is the concept of integrity. And integrity at the moment right now feels synonymous to me, especially as AI is becoming a much bigger part of this conversation for me. Integrity is becoming synonymous with alignment, but a big part of integrity is alignment. So I'm thinking about both of these concepts when I use the word integrity right now, especially in the context of this conversation. But let's go with integrity. And I have a definition here derived from the Latin integer, which means whole, complete, the state of being undivided. Really nice complementary word alongside the framework I've just shown you, that really we are composed of so many different parts. And really our dissatisfaction is not having these parts in harmony, not being that integer. And then the next definition, two parts, a state of being whole and complete, as we've just said, but adherence to moral principles. And that's really, for me, where the big alignment aspect. I mean, integrity is having all of the different parts of our being connected, in agreement, coherent, synergizing, whole, connected. But then the moral principles is, are our actions, are our thoughts, are our choices aligned with that higher principle? Because we don't get from a situation, we don't access the low time preference version or opportunity if we're not aligned to a principle to guide us there. If we respond to the situation in a patterned, short-term horizon manner, then we reinforce unwanted patterns. But in order to strive for something that is not simply repeating the patterns, we choose instead to align our actions with principles that we have deliberately chosen, that we know will move us somewhere better than repeating patterns will. And so integrity, I've also been thinking about as, like I said, a big part of integrity is alignment, but then there is also this ability to respond. Because this ability to, so we have this alignment with the higher principle that makes us aware, but then there is an ability, a willpower, some mechanism which allows us to then act, to respond in accordance with that alignment, in accordance with that principle. And so all of that is both what we do as we master this system, but also what we become is integrous and aligned. And that is the state that I believe for me for sure, but I think for lots of us, is what we actually want. And integrity is a beautiful principle which actually has, I've thought about it in a number of different ways. Integrity, again, think of it as alignment, and think about this multi-dimensional, complex system that is our human behavior and actions and our life situation. And impeccability, a component of integrity, where our actions align with our values. Do we do what we believe is best? Truthfulness. Is there alignment, agreement between the words that we use and the reality which those words represent? Vulnerability, a massive part of personal growth. Do we actually share? If there is an experience happening inside of us, are we aware of it? And then do we share it? Because even if we're aware of it but we don't share it, there is fundamentally not an alignment between what we're saying and what we're feeling. Presence is the alignment of our awareness with the activity at hand. If we're busy with something and our awareness is not on that activity, it's on something else, we've lost alignment. And I think it's quite obvious. These have been taught to us all as really good ideas, really good values, but they are actually the different ways in which we access our own fulfillment. The way we break free from our patterns. It's all of our unconscious fears and patterns which cause us to break or to fracture these values. And then thus, in a low time preference sense, in the long-term horizon, we'll end up suffering for these. We'll end up being controlled by these. And it's only by making different decisions that we, in accordance with impeccability, truthfulness, vulnerability, presence, integrity, that we then start to change the state of our being and start to fundamentally feel different about ourselves and our life situation. And we cannot get a system to have integrity if we are not aware of the different parts of that system. I cannot even tell you if my system is integrous, if I'm not aware of the different parts of my system. I cannot tell you if my life is integrous, if I'm not aware of what are the different components of my life. And so becoming aware of what is actually happening is the first step in being able to become integrous, to claim integrity. It's a huge challenge, but I think this is the hard problem of alignment. This is a personal operating system that I choose to inch myself forward to 1% every day. And as a consequence, I'm excited about what happens when I get my super powerful AI assistant to help me to these ends. Now, I want to get one thing clear, that I'm not coming to you as a mastery of integrity. In fact, I've learned most of what I've had to learn about integrity as a consequence of the lack of it. And many of my biggest challenges, or many of my biggest growth spurts, have come from the many challenges that I've been gifted with. This has been far opposite of a perfectly smooth, easy path. And it's a journey which continues to give me gifts disguised as challenges. But I'm not at all standing here as an expert claiming to know everything there is to know about these concepts, nor to try and pretend that I embody these principles. Yes, day by day, I let go of more patterns and I embody these principles more and more. But I'm a fellow traveler. I'm sharing, because I think this conversation is so important. I'm sharing what I'm thinking about, what I see, and what I'm building, because I'll share a lot about what I'm building, so that we can have a conversation about it, so that the conversation itself grows. Yes, maybe you can learn something from the system. Maybe you like the system and use it. Maybe you like parts of it and then you fine-tune it. Maybe you don't like the system at all, but it gets you thinking about your system. We are fellow travelers, learning through dialogue. I just want to start the conversation. Now, who am I to share this? And this is quite a broad system with many claims, very opinionated, but this is, I believe, the product of my journey. And some of the directly valuable parts is that I've spent the last 15 years in the health domain. Many different ways that I've engaged with it, with the concepts of eat, move, meditate. I am a systems thinker by compulsion. I connect disparate dots and perceive patterns. And a few times when I've been asked, what is my superpower? I genuinely believe that I have a gift for finding the signal in the noise. I grew up on the internet and I was always finding myself discovering the core of an argument, a thesis, finding the most valuable information which felt most true. Later, many times having this validated when I became much more experienced, when I gained much more insight. And so some resonant mechanism inside of me, for many of the feelings that I have struggled to connect with over the years, one feeling that I have been connected with very strongly is this sense of resonance. Does this feel good? Does this feel whole? Does this feel true? And I've managed to find myself a lot of very useful information which has served me extremely well. My career has been, I studied mechanical engineering for 3 years. I had an early life crisis. I realized that I had never seen a cell under a microscope. And so I thought if I didn't change paths then, I never would. So I switched across to biomedical sciences. Was fortunate to do all of the medical science majors. In mechanical engineering, gifted to do the physics, the maths, thermodynamics, fluid dynamics, material science, all of those. Biomedical sciences, blessed to do anatomy, physiology, some medical nutrition, cut open a cadaver. And in the last 2 years, I specialized in therapeutic exercise sciences, and got to apply some of my mechanical intuition that I've grown over the years. Ran my own practice for 5 years, specializing in lower back pain, or specializing in the spine, which is beautiful. What a wonderful place to start. And then I went and did a master's in data science so that I could start working in technology. I also saw it as the future of all these industries, which has just become more and more true with AI. And since then, I have been working as an engineer in a financial technology company, but I would say I've mostly been developing as an AI engineer on the side. And so just a broad spectrum, and that's just formal education, formal work. I would say I've even learned much more than all of that on the side. Studying health, studying business, studying technology, psychology, meditation, many very deep rabbit holes that I've gone down. I was a registered health practitioner, a biokineticist, we call them in South Africa. It's like a movement-focused physiotherapist. I've done 11 10-day Vipassana, 10-day meditation courses. I try to go every year. Spent a lot of time around that, studying a lot of Eastern philosophy. Have a strong daily practice. And then, as I said earlier, most of my learning has come through many injuries, many challenges, and patterns that I've wanted to release. For a long time, it was my right wrist that was my biggest teacher. My right wrist was broken, literally broken, for almost a decade because it was misdiagnosed, and then I had a failed surgery. And this was my right hand, while being a movement-obsessed individual, needing to move every day. I got taught humility and patience through and through with that experience. And that's one of many experiences in all across the board, health, wealth, and connection. So I just have the nature where I have these challenges and I solve them. Systems thinker, obsessively always thinking about how this fits into the broader human experience. Where does it fit into my map of life? And this has just helped me navigate my experience. And so the honest position, excuse the points at the bottom. I asked my AI to fix that, but clearly it didn't. My honest position: eat, move, meditate. I would consider myself a bit of an authority. I definitely have strong opinions. And that's what I've spent the most time on and spent the longest implementing. I have extensively studied lots of deep work around mastery, mission, and money, but haven't really used that to make real money yet. Haven't really applied myself to a project long enough to get the compounded benefits. But now I'm quite excited about all the possibilities. And so this is where I'm building in public. This is where you're going to see, as I implement everything I've learned, Another rabbit hole was Bitcoin and Austrian economics. Studied Mises and Hayek and Seyfedin Ammous, but basically went down an economics rabbit hole. Fortunate to learn Austrian economics, and a huge fan of the free market. And if that triggers you, I would say you don't understand that we don't actually have a capitalist system at the moment. We have a corrupt, crony version of capitalism, and we haven't had the chance yet. But the free market entrepreneurship, I think it's, learning from guys like Dan Coe and Matt Gray and the E-Myth Revisited, that entrepreneurship is yet another journey for many people to tune into what resonates with them so much that they, pursue it as a business vision, that the gifts that we share on our mission, that basically it's a mission. And then, of course, in my intimate experience, less than a year ago, I discovered I'm a recovering nice guy, which itself is like the opposite of integrity, because a nice guy is essentially the opposite of a real guy. Lots of manipulation, lots of lying, all very subtle and superficial, or subtle and deceptive. But so I've been on this journey working with coaches, men's circles, and therapists, and I'm, unraveling, letting go of the nice guy patterns that have caused so much unfulfillment for me, but very much a project in process. And so this is just a very brief introduction to where I am at in my journey on some of these missions, just so that you have a clear idea that I'm on the journey just like anyone else, and I have my skills. I am learning in other places, and ultimately over the course of my life I aim to become a bit more well-rounded, so that not well-rounded in maybe the common sense, but well-rounded as in being healthy, being wealthy, and being connected. And wealth, again, itself is not necessarily judged by the size of the bank account. It's measured by freedom, time and location freedom if you choose. It's whether you feel like you're highly resonant with the work that you're doing and what you're contributing to the world. And do you have some sense of mastery, that you feel good about what you do, that you actually have some skill? And this could be anything from parenting through to high-powered CEO or meditation master, spiritual teacher. It could be anything. But have we given ourselves enough attention? Have we paid enough attention to ourselves to cultivate the gifts that are inside of us, that all of us have, that we carry with us? And are we sharing them with the world? So I'm not teaching integrity from mastery. I'm learning and I'm sharing. Now, this is the system as it stands for me right now. This is the operating system that I'm going to be embedding into my super assistants as I can more and more. This is just food for thought for you. I will be sharing, depending on the conversations I have, more and more of this operating system, so that you too can use it if you wish, if it aligns with you, if it aligns with your values. But in whatever situation, take what works. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Even if this just causes you to start reflecting on your own values, then that's a positive outcome for me. That's what I want. That's what I want, us to really think about what makes us fulfilled individually, all of us in our uniqueness, and to use this new high potential technology to those ends. Don't just use it to repeat the same patterns that you've been repeating, now with more power. So the name that this beautiful system has to me, Neo-Meta, moving, eating, and thinking with awareness. Neo meaning new or novel, and you'll see me use that sometimes just to refer to this as the Neo-Meta operating system, largely inspired by moving, eating, thinking with awareness because of my deep involvement in health and eat, move, meditate initially. But I still think of moving as expression, eating as consumption, thinking as expansion. And this is analogous in all three of the domains. So I like it. And neo, new or novel, meta, above or beyond. So a new way of going above and beyond. Now, the vision that I do have with this, as I said, this is not a brand. I'm not trying to sell you this. I hope there's a lot of value and maybe you do buy things from me in the future. But I'm thinking of this more as a school where we can mutually explore our better future together. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you what works for me. I can tell you I have some pretty darn good experience in some of these domains, and I've had a lot of success. I'm moving forward every day. I'm feeling younger. I'm more free, and I'm having success in all of these domains. So that will speak for itself. That will, determine how much value you see in this. But I'm a humble fellow traveler, not a guru. I like to think of all of the work that I'll be sharing as forkable. It's a software engineering term. You can just copy it and then use what resonates, modify what doesn't, chuck the rest. And I would most of all love for this to be a conversation, a back and forth conversation where you can learn what I'm saying, I can learn from what you're saying, and we can both help us improve our operating systems more and more. Because that's ultimately what this is about. I'm sharing my operating system. I'm sharing why I think an operating system is so important right now, because we need to give our personal AIs operating systems. If we don't, then to what ends are they striving? What are their values? I don't want some central authority or organization to try and decide what is the best for a whole population of people. We've been through that before with nutrition, with medicine, with schooling, with anywhere we can look where central authorities have tried to decide with good or bad intentions what is best for all of us, then none of us are really fulfilled. And so this is what I'm moving towards. And this is how I'm aligning my AI. This is how I'm aligning my actions. Please think about your own operating system. Build your own operating system. And, ultimately, this is the process of how you choose where it is you want to go in this new exciting era. And to take this a step further, your child, if you don't already have one. My wife and I are pregnant now, so this is another thought at the forefront of my mind. My child will grow up with super intelligent AI systems that can give it an education more individualized and with more potential than any schooling system ever could have. But what education will it give it? What values will that system have? What operating system am I going to install? Am I going to choose for my child to be developed on? Of course, from the moment they can think for themselves and they want to start fine-tuning that system, that's what they need to do. But what starting point do I give them? Do I give them the chance of standing on the shoulders of giants? And this, to come full circle to the AI alignment challenge. I have a strong philosophical belief that AI needs to be decentrally aligned just as much as it is centrally aligned. The intelligence or the model providers have to align it at scale. Can we protect our species? But each of us has the task of aligning our personal AI, the implementation that is served to us that actually helps us with our actions. It's up to us to align that system with our individual good. And then we have these two layers where we have, and I think this is the future I hope for, where all of the intelligence, each of us, I think the only way we align it is that every single person has access to the same level of intelligence, which is helping them pursue their personal aims, values, aspirations, whatever it is. It's helping them, through their choices, strive for their highest good, as defined by them, while at the same time, the other function that the model is trying to achieve is the collective safety, human rights. And this is what the model providers are doing for us. They're taking care of that half of the problem. We need to take care of the other half. But if we don't take care of our half, if we don't know what our values are, if we don't choose an operating system, then we really only get a model that's good at not causing other people harm. But it's not at all fine-tuned to maximize our personal benefits. And again, we get back to the puppet and the pilot. Are we going to passively wait to receive whatever models we get for whatever advice we get from the AI? Are we going to allow the values encoded into those systems to guide our thinking and our choices? Are we going to just submit ourselves to the wisdom of the AI or the value of the AI because it's going to become profoundly intelligent? Or are we going to architect? Are we going to define our own alignment so that we can apply that profound digital intelligence through the lens of the values that we define, so that the AI can assist us in our journey, not simply avoiding harming everyone else and giving us and applying a generic set of hopes and dreams onto us. And the reason I'm talking about this now is because I genuinely believe that the most impactful thing that can happen right now is for millions of us to ask ourselves, what is our highest good? What is the path that I need to walk to become my most fulfilled self, to become my most satisfied, grateful, most free self? And then we need to take that knowledge and build the systems to help us achieve that, or use the systems that are given to us to achieve those goals. And it's this personal alignment, this individual alignment, and the deployment of intelligence to help all individuals achieve their personally defined highest good goals. This is the journey that will change everything. This is how AI transforms the planet, when billions of us are empowered to pursue what resonates with us, to chase our curiosities, to feed our interests, and to find out what excites us the most, and then empower us to share that with the world, and to change our experience of reality so that we become beings which are more satisfied, more fulfilled, instead of beings which obsessively chase and have patterns to chase satisfaction and to chase fulfillment. This is what I believe changes everything. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.